everyone to the Raising Special Kids Quick Connect Facebook Live series. I'm Brittany. I'm super excited to be back hosting today. We hope our families are doing well. It's exciting to see the weather changing, it getting a little bit cooler and heading into fall. We hope school is going well for our families, and we're grateful for all the calls we're getting to provide support. So today I'm really excited about our guest that we're going to be talking with. So Raising Special Kids really values our relationship with the Arizona Early Intervention Program, or AzEIP. If many of you didn't know, we actually are home of central referral for early intervention. So if you're referring a family or if you as a parent are referring your child, when you put in that online referral or you call central referral, it actually goes to a dedicated team here at Raising Special Kids that assist with that. So we are very passionate about supporting families early on in their journey, and we're grateful for the relationship we have with the Arizona Early Intervention team. So today it's my pleasure to introduce Erica Melies. She's the program manager at Early Intervention, and Tanya Goitia. She's the continuous quality improvement coordinator. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
You're welcome. We're glad that you're here. So before we get into our questions, do each of you want to take a moment and tell us about yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Brittany.
Sure.
So my name, as Brittany shared, is Erica Melies, and I am the program manager for AzEIP. I've been involved with AzEIP since 2002. It started as a parent. My older son wasn't talking, and I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't find any support. Our pediatrician kept telling me, wait, he's a boy, but I knew something wasn't right. Finally, when my son was 2 years old, we were referred to a speech pathologist for an evaluation and found out that he had a significant speech language delay, which I knew. And once the evaluation was covered, I thought, okay, good, I'm going to get help. But then I found out my insurance didn't cover speech therapy. And so again, I was just searching and searching. And a friend told me about the Arizona Early Intervention Program. And it was amazing. It provided me with so much support. And I was with them until my son turned 3 and he graduated into the developmental preschool program. And they asked me to join as a developmental specialist. And I did, and I loved the work. A few years later, my younger son was born, and I thought, okay, I know what I did wrong last time, and I'm going to do it right this time. No more delays. Nope. Younger son, he didn't walk and he didn't talk. So I wanted to share this story with you that, first of all, that I'm a parent. I understand a lot of what our families are going through, and that you need to trust your parental instincts. If you know that something's not right, make that referral. And two, remember you're doing the best as you can as a parent. Your child's unique. They're born with their own set of strengths and weaknesses, and you do what you can. But sometimes we need that help, ask for that help, and we're here to provide it.
Thank you so much, Erica. Tanya?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm very fortunate to work with Erica. I have to just give a plug that her younger son now is up in Flagstaff at NAU by me in my neck of the woods. So I think that's pretty cool, so that she had such a great experience, and her boys are doing so well. As Brittany said, I'm Tanya Goitia, and I have worked with the Arizona Early Intervention Program in some capacity, probably since, like, I would say maybe 2006. I started actually my journey with the Division of Developmental Disabilities in 1995, and kind of moved around, was trained by some amazing families out there that I got to know very well, and just appreciate. I'll just take this little moment to just say thank you to all the families who trained me up in this, set me on my path. So I don't have a personal experience with early intervention per se, but I do have some very close family friends who have raised foster children that are now in their 40s and still live with them. And so they had developmental disabilities, and they've just been a great inspiration to me. So very thankful to be here and share what I've learned along the way, mostly from all of you. So thank you.
Thank you both for sharing a little bit about yourselves and that perspective and expertise. So we're excited to learn from you today. So both of I gathered some questions that we often get from families regarding early intervention. So let's get to it. Let's just go through these questions. First up, excuse me, we often get questions from families regarding that initial assessment process and how eligibility is determined. Do you mind talking about that?
Brittany, I'll take that question.
Great.
Before we get into how children become eligible for the Arizona Early Intervention Program, AzEIP, I'd like to spend a moment discussing our program. AzEIP is funded through the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, which is IDEA Part C, and provides early intervention for children from birth up until the age of 3. AzEIP is the lead agency and is responsible for the supervision and oversight of the program. We have 12 service providing agencies who deliver the services to families and their children across the state. The purpose of our services is to build upon and provide support resources to assist family members and caregivers to enhance their children's development and learning. We recognize that infants and toddlers learn best through everyday experiences and interactions with family and friends. The primary role of a service provider in early intervention is to work with and support family members and caregivers in their child's life. Anyone can make a referral to AzEIP. It could be a doctor, a child care provider, family, friends, or parents. But AzEIP is a voluntary program, so it's ultimately the parent's decision if they would like to receive that support. And if you have a concern about your child's development, please make that referral, as I was mentioning earlier. We want to get those early intervention services started as soon as possible. And just a little interesting fact, at birth, an average baby's brain is about the quarter the size of the average adult brain. It doubles in size the first year, and it keeps growing to about 80% of the adult size by age of 3. And it's 90%, nearly full grown by age 5. So that's why early intervention services are so important. Back to your question more specifically. So AzEIP's eligibility is that a child has to have a significant delay in one or more developmental areas. Those developmental domains include communication, cognitive, social, emotional, adaptive, and physical. Physical includes that gross motor, fine motor, as well as sensory neural delays. Sensory neural delays are hearing or vision. We also recognize there are some diagnoses, established conditions that will have developmental delays. And those diagnoses would be an established condition to be automatically eligible if they're accompanied by the appropriate medical documentation. So some of those diagnoses could be a bilateral hearing loss, cerebral palsy, autism, or a seizure disorder. If your child does not have an established condition or does not have that medical documentation identifying the diagnosis, your service coordinator will complete a screening to see if there's a likelihood of having a significant delay. If your child's screening identifies the possibility of a delay, you will be asked if you would like to move forward with an evaluation. Even if that screening does not identify that possible delay, parents may request an evaluation and we can move forward with it. If the global evaluation is required, a team will come to your home to evaluate your child. They will use observation, parent interview, interaction with your child, and they'll utilize an evaluation tool to determine your child's developmental skill levels. If your child is determined eligible, they will have an individualized family service plan, which is the IFSP, and that'll be created within 45 days of that initial referral. So that very first phone call, whoever makes it, that's what starts that timeline. We want to ensure that children are identified with qualifying delays, receive services as soon as possible. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. That actually addressed my next question, the timeline. So just to review, it's my understanding once a referral is put in, that process has to be completed within 45 days. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be completed within 45 days. Sometimes we do encounter families who are going on vacation, and that's okay. We want to make it, we want to work around your schedule.
Okay. Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. So, my child went through the early intervention assessment process. She's been found eligible. What is that first meeting like? And what is that individual family service plan, that IFSP?
I can speak to that, Brittany. Thank you. So those are very good questions. So as Erica was talking about the eligibility process and everything, once a child is eligible for early intervention, then that first step is to develop a child and family assessment. And that's scheduled with the child, the family, and their team members. So that those team members include their service coordinator, service provider that participated maybe in the evaluation or a review of their records, and then any other important people in the family's life. So if the family wants to include a family member, another family member, a grandma, an aunt, uncle, friend, those folks are also welcome to participate in that discussion. During that child and family assessment meeting, the team helps the family take a thorough look at their just everyday routines and activities of the family. So things that they normally do every day, getting the kiddo up for the day, eating meals, going on, trips to the grocery store, out to watch Big Brother play baseball, all that kind of all those kinds of activities. They'll get together and have a discussion about what their day looks like, what parts of the day are really easy for them, and then times of the day that are a little bit more challenging. And based on that information that's gathered, then they'll also talk about the family's current support system, what resources they already have available to them that they're using, and then discuss any concerns and priorities that they have for their child and family. Once that is done, they move into the individualized family service plan that we talked about a little bit earlier, or IFSP. And during that portion of the meeting, which could occur on that same day right after the child and family assessment, or if needed, and based on the family's preferences, it could occur on a different day. During that portion of the meeting, they'll start working with the team to develop activity-based outcomes. So outcomes meaning, what do you want to see for your kiddo in the next few months? What would make your lives easier? So you want to help identify what those things are that the team is going to focus on with the family. So the team will additionally identify strategies with the family to help meet those outcomes. So they'll figure out things that are currently working for the family based on what they've shared during the child and family assessment. And then they'll also work together to create new strategies, new ideas that the family can try throughout their day. And based on those outcomes and the family's resources, that next step is then to identify the services that will be used to help the family achieve their outcomes. And so I don't know if it would help if we do just a quick little scenario. We could share just a situation. I know you mentioned that your daughter went through early intervention, so something similar may have occurred for you. So if we think about a little kiddo, we'll call her Susie. She lives with her mom and dad and her grandma, for example. And during that child and family assessment, Susie's grandma tells us that she is really concerned because Susie doesn't watch where she's going. She doesn't recognize common dangers. When they're out playing on the swing, she doesn't move out of the way and her brother barrels into her. She doesn't play interactively with her brother, and she just can't keep up with him. He gets ahead of her running and climbing, and she's just not quite there yet. She always wants an adult to be with her at all times. And that doesn't allow the grandma to get things done around the house, doesn't allow her to get ready for dinner, that kind of thing. And then Susie's father also shares maybe during the assessment that Susie cries when she comes inside and she goes off on her own. She doesn't really want to interact with the family, and those things are important for them. So based on those examples, the team might come up with, in talking with the family, some outcomes like Susie will follow her older brother outside to play safely with him while her grandma makes dinner for the family. Another one might be that the parents would like for Susie to come inside when they get home from work and they can all spend time together as a family. So once those outcomes are developed, then the team will help support the family in figuring out who they would like to have as their main point of contact. That person would be their go-to provider. In AzEIP, we call that the team lead. So in our scenario, we've found that Susie took a liking to the occupational therapist who was a part of the evaluation. She'll sit next to her. She likes to be around her and play with her. So the family thinks that that's going to be a consistent need moving forward. And since she likes the occupational therapist, they've decided as a team that that'll be the person to work with the child and family most often. That'll be their primary support person. They may also recognize that there's some additional supports needed. Susie might need to get fitted for AFOs or ankle foot orthoses. And so she, the occupational therapist doesn't quite have all that she needs to know about those specific AFOs. And so she might pull in the physical therapist to help with identifying those needs and any strategies to support the family once the AFOs are received. The service coordinator might help Susie get her vision checked. So she might be focused on that. So you see that there is a whole team of folks that are there to help support the family based on whatever the needs are of the family. So in this situation, we might say the team lead is the occupational therapist, and that person will receive support from the physical therapist and the service coordinator. So that's like the main bulk of the IFSP, but we, at the very end, the service coordinator is going to ask the family if they agree with what's been discussed, with what's been written, and we need the consent of the family to move forward. So if for families that are listening, if you don't agree with what was discussed or you don't agree with how it was written down, let your team know. That's the perfect opportunity to be, start fresh, start again, and figure out what would look better, what would make more sense for you. This is also the time that the service coordinator will be reviewing your child and family rights. So they'll obtain your consent, share with you your rights, and then you'll be moving forward to get services going. And anytime that IFSP maybe changes, needs to be updated, then that the team will reconvene. It's a fluid document. It's updated as the needs of the child and family change. And so families are encouraged to stay in close contact with their team lead and their other support providers, their service coordinator, to make sure that their needs are being met.
Thank you, Tanya. And thank you for giving us that real life scenario. I know at Raising Special Kids, we get questions from families regarding like what their role is. And just hearing you, it sounds like our job is to be really involved and to provide what's important to us and what we want our kids to work on and have that whole family involved. So thank you for giving that detailed description. And it leads me into my next question. So, what is the team-based model and what is the family's role with that?
Thank you, Brittany. I'll take that one. Let Tanya have a rest. So AzEIP provides educational services to families utilizing the team-based early intervention coaching style. Every child has a team, and that team includes a service coordinator and a core team of providers that are available as needed to support the child and their family. The core team includes a developmental specialist, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, speech therapist, and when applicable, a social worker, psychologist, teacher of the deaf, and teacher of the visually impaired. Team-based early intervention builds on the family's relationship with their team lead. As a child's skills and routines cannot be neatly divided into developmental domains, neither can their services. Team-based early intervention reduces gaps and overlaps in supports and services. The team, which includes the family, identifies the support their team lead needs from their core team to assist the family in meeting their outcomes. Every child and family is unique, and the supports they need will be individualized based on those family needs. The services on the IFSP are identified as a number of services to be provided over the duration of the IFSP. A family may need the support from their team lead and the rest of their team more frequently when they first start working on those outcomes. And then they might not need so much as they're working on those strategies. But then right before a child's about ready to meet a big milestone, they might need again another big burst of services. And with team-based, we can do that and support the family in that way. So in the example Tanya mentioned previously, we could use that and build upon that and say, okay, this occupational therapist, we're identifying 17 visits to be provided over 6 months on that IFSP. And the beginning, the families just, they really don't have those strategies. They need a lot of support. So that occupational therapist might be coming to the home twice a week. And then as the family starts working on those strategies, it might move to every other week. But then it might switch back to every week again, right before Susie starts making those big developmental leaps, learning to play on her own. The intent of team-based early intervention is to support the child and family with activities and routines within their everyday lives. The family is the expert of their child and their child's needs. They are the person with whom the child will learn best. By working with the family on therapeutic approaches, the family can create strategies that fit within their daily routines to support their child. And not only for right now, but we're building those skills. So once the child graduates out of our program, those families can use those same skills to analyze these situations that they encounter later and be able to create strategies on their own. So we're helping not just now, but we're building that family's capacity for the future. The child and family, by using these types of approach, the child and family has that flexibility to work on skills at all times of the day without sacrificing the joys of everyday life. They can work on those skills when they go to a baseball game, when they go to the grocery store, when they go visit Uncle Fred, who lives out of the state. They can be using those services, working on those skills at all times. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And listening to you, I heard the word, educational, coaching, teaching the family. I do know that, at Raising Special Kids, we get a lot of calls that families are not quite sure, why this is different than the medical model. Their doctor says, here's a script for an hour a week of all the therapies you need. And then early intervention has a different approach. Can you kind of talk about that and why team-based, why it changed years ago to this method of practice?
Absolutely. So exactly as you mentioned, we are educational. We are looking at the family's home life and hearing what the family is sharing. Where is their concern? Where are they running into those challenges? What would they like to change? And that is our primary focus. The medical model, it is looking typically at what are the deficits of the child, and they're working to correct the deficits. So we're here to support the family within the daily routines versus looking at those deficits.
Okay.
As far as that's a big question of when did AzEIP switch to the team-based model? So ID8 Part C, that's the law that governs early intervention programs like AzEIP. It requires states to select evidence-based practices in the delivery of early intervention services. DES AzEIP staff did extensive research to learn which evidence-based practices were used in other states and identify the ones that were most successful. AzEIP brought this information back to stakeholders and received feedback from community, families, and providers to pilot the team-based approach, coaching, and resource-based capacity building. After the results of a successful pilot, that team-based approach was expanded statewide in 2012. It seems like it was just yesterday. And AzEIP has continued to review and report on the results of team-based early intervention in both the annual performance report and the state systemic improvement plan. And that report is available on the AzEIP website. Prior to 2012, there were families that had services identified on their service plan, but service coordinators were not able to find providers to deliver services in some parts of the state. As a result, many families were not receiving the services that they needed for their child to make progress in their development. Common issues prior to the team-based early intervention was that families may need to travel to a clinic, but if they didn't have transportation or there wasn't a clinic nearby, they might not receive services. In some cases, clinics or home-based providers were not available for all services on the child's service plan, so the child may have received some, but not all of their services. And in some cases, some providers did not travel to certain zip codes or rural areas, leaving families out of luck. It was also common for families to be on a wait list for services until a therapist had openings. In other cases, one agency would agree to evaluate a child, but not provide ongoing services, leading to families wasting precious time looking for someone to provide services, waiting for records to be sent and received, waiting to schedule, and then catching a new therapist up on everything that had already happened. When AzEIP began contracting for team-based early intervention services, the contracts were set up in a way that required providers to provide services in all parts of the state and to make early intervention services available to all families so that families could receive the service no matter what zip code they lived in and how rural their community. This also allowed for families to receive services without passing back and forth between providers who would evaluate the child for eligibility and provide the services. Now one agency evaluates a child for eligibility, and then if eligible, continues to provide the service to the family. So it provides that continuity of care. With the addition of coaching, team members take the time to support and build the capacity of the family and the child's natural routine to be successful beyond early intervention in supporting the child's development. So that's, in a nutshell, how we made that switch.
Sounds like it was a really well-researched, thought out decision and to think about what's best for our young families and children. Thank you for giving us that description. So you mentioned the word services. We get this question all the time, like, what is my child going to get? What therapies? So what are some of the potential services a child could receive in early intervention?
That's another good question. Sorry, Tanya, I'll take this one too. So the services are based on those child outcomes that are created with the family. What support, looking at the support the family is already receiving, what they already know, what additional support do they need to meet those outcomes? Those supports could be a developmental specialist. It could be an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a speech language pathologist, a mixture of those. And then in addition, depending on the needs of the child, we also have the vision and hearing services, social work, and psychology. There are also, if they need other services beyond that, the service coordinator will support them in obtaining those services.
Thank you. Wonderful. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about virtual therapies. So, admittedly at Raising Special Kids, we sometimes are still hearing from families that they're being told they have to do virtual therapies. Is that true?
Oh, I can take this one. Yeah, thank you so much for asking that, Brittany. So AzEIP is a home visiting program. Our meetings and visits are provided within the family's home and community. However, we do allow virtual or potentially hybrid services, so a combination of in-person and virtual services based on the request of the family. But if a family is wishing to have services within their home or within their community and they're meeting some resistance from their team, we encourage them to talk to their team, and if that's not helping, to call their service providing agency. The team should be able to provide you with the contact information for their leaders, and it's also available on the AzEIP website. And if after speaking with the team and the agency, they continue to not be provided with the in-person services they're requesting, we would ask that you please call the AzEIP office. Our phone number is 602-532-9960. You're also welcome to email us at azip@azdes.gov. It's AZEIP@azdes.gov. And then you can also contact us through the AzEIP website for assistance. And I think we might have some other questions about this a little bit later, so we'll talk a little bit more when we get there.
Sounds good. So thank you for sharing that. So families, remember, if you do not want to do virtual therapies, talk to your team, go up the chain of command. We will put the early intervention website in the comments, and we're going to talk a little bit later about your rights and things like that. That will address it, but very good to know. So I know you mentioned there's, a certain amount of early intervention providers in our state. How are those assigned?
So we have Arizona is divided into 23 geographical service regions, and each region has at least one contracted service providing agency that serves that entire region, that entire area. More populous regions have 2 contracted service providing agencies. So each child is assigned to a service providing agency based on their residential zip code. Services are provided, like we were saying, in the family's home, in local communities. So providers that are assigned to them are able to travel to those locations.
Okay. Next question, I'm just going to move on. Let's talk a little bit about private insurance. And we get a lot of calls about this, so I wanted to include that. Does a family have to disclose that they have private insurance to their AzEIP team? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, I can talk about that as well. And I would also extend that to public insurance as well. So private and public insurance. So in Arizona, early intervention services are provided at no cost to families. There is not an out-of-pocket cost that a family should be receiving when services are identified on their IFSP. But AzEIP does use multiple funding sources, including the private health insurance that you mentioned, as well as public health insurance. In Arizona, our Medicaid system is the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, more commonly known as ACCESS. We also use state and federal funds to pay for IDEA Part C services. So using all possible funding sources does help AzEIP maximize our resources to ensure that we can continue to have the program available for all infants and toddlers and their families at no charge. So we do ask for families to agree and give permission for us to bill their private or public insurance. But their decision to agree or not agree with that does not have an impact on the services they receive. They have the right to decline to use their health insurance for AzEIP services. And if a family declines, then we won't even collect that insurance information. So we do want to make sure though that folks know that if they're interested in applying for the Division of Developmental Disabilities or the Arizona Long-Term Care System, so DDD or ALTEX, they do require the consent to use private insurance to be determined eligible for those programs. But again, DDD eligibility, it's not going to change the services that are received. Your decision is not going to change their services that are received. If you're eligible for ALTEX, though, you may be eligible for some additional services that AzEIP does not provide. So that should be considered when making that decision on whether or not to consent to use insurance.
Perfect. Thank you. So this scenario we hear sometimes since we're talking about insurance. So I'm just going to read it out to you. So if a family has private or public insurance, we know AzEIP is a home-based model. Can they kind of do a mix of that? Could they go to a clinic for feeding therapy or whatever, but then do additional AzEIP services in the home and still be eligible for the program?
Brittany, that's a great question, and we do hear that quite a bit. It's the family's right to choose whether they want to receive their services through a private clinic or through AzEIP. They can utilize their insurance and private pay to go to a clinic, or they can receive services through AzEIP. And they can receive some of those services at the clinic and some through us. When it comes to using your insurance, you want to make sure that you check with your insurance company on how your insurance can be utilized and what those limitations are if you are receiving those services through a clinic.
Thank you. That's really good to know. So if families are wanting this, would it be best for them to talk to their service coordinator and fill them in on, the different outside therapies they're trying to pursue?
Absolutely, because when we're looking at how we're supporting the families, those outside resources, those directly impact and influence how the team provides support to the family. So with the family's consent, you might be asked if we could get a consent so we could talk to your private team so we know what's happening there and bridge that gap into the services that are happening in the home.
Perfect. So I heard DDD, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, which leads me into our next question. So if a child is eligible for early intervention services, but they have one of the diagnoses that DDD considers, how does that work? I know there's a lot of confusion, like who helps me apply? If they are eligible for DDD and ALTEX and AzEIP too, who provides what? Can you give any clarity on that?
Absolutely. So when a child is initially, at that very beginning, when the child is made eligible, the service coordinator will talk to the family about if they wish to put in an application to see if they might be eligible for DD. To be eligible for DDD, the family must consent to use their insurance. So that might be a factor in that decision. And also they need to be a legal resident. So, but if a family wants to make that eligibility application to DDD, the service coordinator will collect all the information that needs to be sent over and obtain a consent from the family, and they will assist the family in that process. If the child's determined not to be eligible by DDD, the family can appeal that decision and they can call the DDD customer service line to get assistance on that. The team will also continually reassess that child's developmental skills throughout their time with AzEIP. And if the family or if the team notices that maybe we should make another application, that can be done at any time. As far as Altex, the service coordinator can assist the family in applying for Altex at any time as well. AzEIP services are based on the child's and family's outcomes, not so much whether they have Altex or DDD. So all those services, they remain the same. Those are more DDD and Altex are funding sources. It doesn't change the services that AzEIP provides.
Okay. So recapping that, if my daughter, she received early intervention really early on and DDD and Altex. So early intervention would still provide her services based on the outcomes we set. But like if she got qualified for nursing or respite, that would be with DDD. So is the service coordinator, I'm just adding a question, I hope that's okay. Are they still the touch point for all of those services, or do they have someone with DDD helping them too if they qualify for both?
That is a great question. So every family with AzEIP has a service coordinator. If a child becomes DDD eligible and has that public insurance or Altex, then that service coordination responsibilities will shift from their contractor over to DDD because they are highly trained in all the nuances of utilizing that public insurance and Altex. So the service coordinator might change to a DDD support coordinator, but your team doesn't change. You still have the same occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist, developmental specialist. Again, going back to, we want to just have that continuity of care.
Thank you. That's a question we get all the time, so I'm glad I remembered to ask you. So shifting gears as we, start to wrap up our questions. So let's talk about, if there's an issue. So if the family has concerns about their child's services or a certain member of the IFSP team, what should they do? What steps should they take?
I could take this one. So absolutely, if a family has a concern, we again would encourage them to talk to their team first and foremost. And then they can ask to speak to their service providing agency leadership for assistance if they don't feel like they're quite getting what they need from the team. They can also ask to speak to the entire team together in one place. There's regularly scheduled team meetings and the family can participate in that and share what's going on. If they don't feel like their needs and concerns are being addressed, they can reach out to AzEIP at any time, to our office. And then if you're feeling like your Part C rights are being violated, you can request to be assisted with the AzEIP dispute resolution process.
Okay. And that's my next question. So is there a formal dispute resolution process within AzEIP?
Yes, there absolutely is. We offer a child and family rights in the Arizona Early Intervention Program brochure. It's a guidance document that every family can refer to for assistance. And I think the link is going to be provided. We also offer, through that, it describes all of the dispute resolution options available to families. Formal dispute resolution can be addressed through a state investigation, mediation, or a due process hearing. And a request for formal dispute resolution just begins with a written complaint submitted to the AzEIP office that includes a statement about what is believed to not be being followed or what's not happening. That's a requirement of Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It needs to include the facts that support that statement and then a signature and contact information of the person or organization filing the complaint. assistance in writing the complaint can be obtained by asking their service providers. They are happy to help. It can also be obtained by contacting the AzEIP office. I think I gave that information earlier, and we're going to include it in the chat. We also have a complaint request form that's available on our website. And then families can also utilize informal dispute resolution options, request assistance through their service providing agency or AzEIP office to help resolve concerns. And they can simultaneously request both informal and formal dispute resolution. And services will continue to be provided during that process unless the family declines them.
Thank you. So it's good to know as parents, we do have rights in the process. So families, make sure to check the chat. We'll make sure we get that child and family rights link in there, the complaint form. And we encourage you, listeners, or any families that need support, if you're at this place, please call us at Raising Special Kids. We definitely can help you, or talk to your service coordinator or the provider agency, or call the AzEIP, team at their main office. We all want to be here to support your child and help you get the best out of your early intervention experience. So in closing, if each of you had to give, a final word of wisdom or a nugget of advice for families as they experience early intervention with their child, what would you say?
Well, I'll go first, Brittany. That's a great question. The one I would really like to remind families that you're the expert on your child and what your family needs. To be an advocate for your child, ask questions, share your views, have that open communication with your team. Tanya, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just piggybacking on that, don't worry about hurting your team's feelings. They're there to help you. So just lay it out there, let them know. And don't be nervous for asking for help, and always use Raising Special Kids. We'll give that plug. We love you guys, and we are so grateful for all that you do for children and families.
Well, thank you both so much. And thank you for encouraging us as parents, to be advocates for our kids and to really, speak up and share our input. And we all appreciate you attending. I know you both are incredibly busy. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to talk with us and our community. So we appreciate you both. So in closing, thank you all for listening. If you have any questions about, early intervention, or maybe you're suspecting your child might have a delay and you want to refer them, check the resources in the chat, call us at Raising Special Kids. We would love to help you. Finally, I just wanted to let you know that we do have an early childhood education training coming up. It's next week, and it's virtual, it's online, it's at no cost to families, and we talk about extensively the early intervention process. We also go on to developmental preschool and up to kindergarten. So it's a really good training for families of young kids. We encourage you to sign up. And we do have a really helpful early childhood resource section on our website, just chock full of resources. So take advantage of those. We're thinking of our families. And with that, goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.